good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Bob Garvey, and I'm hosting this session, which I'm really looking forward to, from Ho Law today. So a little bit of information about Ho before we start, which I suddenly seem to have lost my notes. Here we go. So actually, Ho and I go back a long time, but we've not seen each other for a long time either. I think we first met in the 1990s, actually. So that's how long ago it was. But yeah, so Ho is an honorary professor of research and psychology at the Colombo International Institute. And amongst other things, he's authored many books that I know about and published many papers. And he is quite an authority in the idea of coaching psychology. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Ho and say, welcome, go well, Ho, have a great session.
Thank you, Bob. Dear friends and colleagues, welcome to the first professional coaching ethics conference. As Bob said, I'm Professor Ho Chung Law, Law Ho Chung, or Ho Law for short in Anglo-Saxon way of saying, as I have been living in England for over 44 years now. But you can simply call me Ho for my name three times at Christmas. I'll bring you the present right here, right now. Got it? The present here and now. So thanks to Wendy Ann for inviting me to contribute to this first professional coaching ethics conference, and Bob, my long trusted colleagues, Professor Garvey, hosting this session is such an honor. Let's start by reminding ourselves why we are here. This session is about coaching and its ethical boundaries. I suppose the reason why I have been invited to talk about this topic, before I start on, just checking you all can hear me and can hear me okay, see me as well as hear my voice okay. Am I too loud or too quiet? Please let me know. I'll try to speak up and speak clearer and slower to make sure my pronunciation, my Chinese accent can be understood all right. So I suppose the reason why I've been invited to talk about this topic is because, as Bob said, go back many years, that because colleagues know that I have been engaged in this topic for many years now, since the formation of the special group in coaching psychology in the United Kingdom, the SGCP, within the British Psychological Society. Now is the division of coaching psychology, DOCP, as the first ethics officer I was on the committee who laid down the ethical foundation of the profession. As Bob knows and many know me, I was and I still am very, very passionate about it. I'm not going to recount the long history about coaching journey that we have been traveling together, Bob and I. But in this juncture, while we're together, I would like to share some of my recent professional engagements, and in particular, the key driver that underpin this session. The first is the discussion that was invoked from the coaching psychologist publication in June last year, 2020, which I have forwarded you a copy if you could have time to look at it after this session. I understand many of you are coach, not psychologists, might not have a copy, especially if you're not a member of the BPS at GCP and now the Division of Coaching Psychology. So you have a free copy from me, which you can download from the chat box. Okay. In that paper, which I have mentioned, for the benefit of those who were not have not got a copy and read it, let me provide some of the highlights. See whether I could share the screen really, if I could share PowerPoint. Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
Let's back to the beginning. Yeah, I think that's it. Can you all see that?
Yep, that's up. Thank you.
So of course, like anything, there's a learning objective. So let's have an overview. As I mentioned, give an introduction, and now I'm giving introductions. I'll give you a 15-minute discussion, and then we have a small group breakout room to discuss the 6 questions I mentioned for you to discuss, and then feedback and conclusion to the whole group. So that is what we are going to do in the next 45 minutes or so. So start with the introduction about this paper. For those who are coaches, which we all are, I assume. So this is the known and familiar, as I mentioned in my paper in narrative coaching, as example, the Johari window in terms of feedback and the blind spot. And so I don't really need to go into detail, but to try to map this onto the narrative conversation, in my paper, I put it upside down, and hence we could lay out the journey of coaching in terms of the preparation in narrative practice and identify the turning point, as I mentioned. And as I mentioned in the reflection, which is on page 7, by the way, which you have a copy, I was particularly struck by my own reflection about the role of coach, the coach as a scientist practitioner in practice. Coaching is a process of inquiry. And using the narrative coaching as an example, a research process as a metaphor for coaching conversation, the significant moment, or so-called the turning point, is the significant moment of change, SMOC, SMOC for change, for short, known as the aha moment, which many of you would talk about it in your conversation and in your writing about coaching. But to me, as a practitioner and researcher who advocate narrative coaching, and have located these moments, mock, at the evaluation stage. This moment is likely to occur when both coachee and coach reflect on their conversation. The coachee learning could then be scaffolded across the zone of proximal development, what the Russian psychologist, developmental psychologist Vygotsky called it the zone of proximal development, as the marker of learning. Where, of course, my dear colleague, the first professor of coaching psychology, Richard Statter at Denmark University of Copenhagen, in his book, The Third Generation Coaching, he called this moment as anchoring with motivation, where one can create a new plan of action, which, as you know, the known and familiar growth model, the late Sir John's growth model, would be the wrap-up stage where you and the coachee will formulate the action plan about the next step, right? So all these are very known and familiar to us as a practitioner coach. So, hence the discussion. So, I would like us please work in small group breakout rooms, drawing from your coaching experiences in response to one or more of the 6 questions in your half-hour breakout conversation. No, it's not here. These are the 6 questions that I mentioned, which will form our next chapter, which thanks to Andy Wen, who invited me for writing a chapter on the ethics book, which, as I said to all the members, that is the foundation of the profession. If you become a division of coaching psychology of the BPS, you need that, and hence this conference and the book. And I will invite you to contribute engagingly to this discussion, and then come back to us at the last 15 minutes to conclude and wrap up. And all the discussion share would contribute to writing of that chapter on ethics. And of course, there will be acknowledgement for those who want acknowledgement and credits to you. Your name, please let me know your name in relation to your contribution that can be acknowledged as part of the chapter of the book. And that's what I call honoring, okay? But if you don't want to, of course, being professional and ethic and confidential, your feedback will be collected and reported back in the chapter anonymously, okay? So off you go, Bob.
Okay,
take us up to a conversation.
Just a thought, you might want to take a screenshot of this screen, because you won't have that with you in the room. That might help you to address the questions that are up there. And I've randomly put people in rooms. If it doesn't go well, you'll come back into the main room and I'll allocate you somewhere else. So hopefully something will happen that's suitable, but do take a screenshot or photograph or whatever of this so that you've got it with you in your rooms. So I've allocated half an hour. Should that be enough? Yeah.
Yes, that's good timing.
And then we can come back and have a debrief of all that. So thank you very much. Here we go.
Change. So how was it like if we would like to invite each group one by one to succinctly summarize the key point of the discussion, would be great, and so on and so forth. And also the opportunity for each of you to ask any final questions, especially for those who might have difficulties in understand my Chinese English, which I'm mindful with that. So we logically and boringly, starting with group one, who would like to share with us your discussion, the highlight or no light about your half-hour discussion, please.
Is that room one? I'm not sure how many people were in room one.
Well, in this case, go for Room 2.
Max, Michael, were you in room 1?
Yes, and I got kicked out and put in room 2 in 30 seconds. So
Okay. Right. Okay. So group 2, Michael, would you like to talk about what
No.
went on? You wouldn't.
I'd like Mary to.
Okay, Mary, there we
Hello.
are. Michael has delegated to you
He
very,
did.
very elegantly. Yes.
He thought this might happen. So we actually all agreed that it is when you have those moments with clients where you have that, where they have that revelation and they have that aha moment, usually it's because we have held space and we have stepped back and allowed them to be in with their feelings. It's a we all agreed it's a very, very humbling and moving moment when that happens. Even spiritual is what we discussed. And in those moments, what I was saying too is just before it happens, watching their body language, how they're holding their head. Sometimes they're teary, sometimes all of those things that we've all witnessed as coaches, and showing up and being very, very present in that moment without really inserting probing questions and just letting it be and just trusting the process is a very, very moving and humbling experience. But usually it's because we've done our work and we just need to let them do their work and have that moment.
Excellent. Excellent. Anything else from group 2, room 2?
I would add to that just to expand that the use of the word spiritual, that we felt it was a very global, holistic, bigger than us, bigger than everything moment that we were privileged to move into a very rare space of possibility. And that perhaps was one of the reasons why it was so moving to be part of it.
Thank you. Room 3, were there were 2 people in room 3. Did you actually meet? Because not all rooms were filled. So so that would be Tia and Amaranto.
Was that me, Amranato? Yeah.
Yes, Amaranto, sorry.
No problem. Yeah. So our discussion was really interesting because we were discussing the boundaries around sort of therapy and coaching, and of course, I'm recognizing also the moment when that happens and how that is for each of us in the session, and it was also sort of very clear, and that was also very nice to hear in that context. And then for me, the sense of warmth when there's that connection on that aha moment of something, that ethical thing arising, and the sense of relief in that. You know, it's like it in some ways, it's even if it's a difficult thing, there's a sort of heartfeltness of it. And a clarity around it. So that was the main focus of our session.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
So and maybe I've just misunderstood something. So what was the ethical thing that was the aha moment, and what did everyone do with it? I'm a bit lost on what the ethical point is around it.
The ethical point was around coaching, whether you should coach somebody or refer them to therapy.
Right.
Okay. And because there was a mixture of experience in the room, just exploring that and really trying to get clear with what is it and what's the mechanism behind it, and how do you choose that for yourself. And it's a shame because Dumi talked about it really clearly in his own personal example. Yeah.
Great.
Is
Okay.
that clear enough?
Yeah, very
it is
interesting.
now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you. Room 4, Francoise, Yanni, Yasmin. I'm not sure if Yasmin was in the room or Nicole. They may not have been. But Yanni, Francois, Jan.
Yeah, that would be me.
Ah,
So,
excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about it's a trusting issue. So it's when and it feels like it's a stop in the conversation when the aha moment goes on, or it could be some feedback like, "Oh, that was a great question," and when that happens, you just sit with it and you sit still, and then like somebody else said here as well, you just kind of trust the process and you go with it. Yeah, we had a great discussion and went into different models, clean language, if that was helpful, the GROW model, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but that is just an add-on.
Okay.
Whatever. Yeah.
And the ethical issue that came forward?
We didn't get to that.
But you had a good discussion anyway.
Had a good discussion. I mean, ethically, we talked a bit about the aha moment. Who is defining it? Is it you as a coach, or is it the client? Because that, I think, is really important to actually that the aha moment is the client's moment.
Indeed.
So that there we touched on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. What about room 6? I don't think there was anybody in room 5, unless I've made a mistake, but it doesn't look like it. But room 6, Catherine, Eva, Gail, Julie, Ruth, Turson. Anybody from there still here?
I'm still here.
Aha, okay.
My unmute didn't want to unmute. We talked about many things, and as a sort of a side point, one of us was speaking about some research that they knew, which was very ethically curious about AI that was spotting when people were going to have transition and aha moments, which came from sales. That they can say more about it if they want to. So we're all like, oh, there's a thing to think about. And we were speaking about co-inquiry and the ethics of being with what is and who decides, what is the session in service of, and a coach pushing for aha moments is not necessarily what the thing is, and that a process of co-inquiry towards something felt more ethically sound, somehow grounded in the relationship. I hope others might add to my ramblings.
That sounds very interesting. Thank you. Does anybody else want to contribute to that?
Yeah, Bob, because Catherine and I were in the group first before the other joined.
Yes.
And Julie has made a good summary. But before that, it's interesting because we were also using the same language that was referred to by the first group, spiritual, bigger than us. We're in service, and ahas happen, and many times they happen between sessions, and they can happen, and they can come not exactly through our intentional interventions, like just giving them a card with a picture, or sometimes from a LinkedIn video that we see and is relative to something they said. And so it's just the spiritual, and the other word we used was magic. So we found it a bit difficult to put it in the model, because in our view, the ahas are more a consequence of the holding the space.
Ah, interesting. And the ethical point that comes through your discussions?
Well, the ethical is what Julie already mentioned. We are not there to produce ahas, are we? We are there to create awareness, but we're there to hold the space. And it's just a consequence. And of course, then we have to hold the space even further if it does happen in the session, but it's not our agenda to produce aha, because that would be an ethical issue.
Sure. I think the word Julie used was push. It's not for the coach to push towards an aha moment. I think that's a very interesting issue. We're kind of running out of time. Let's hand back to Ho. We haven't completed everybody, but I don't think we will in the time. Ho, have you some final words for us?
Thank you, Bob. Excellent facilitation. I think Camilla got a hands up. Do you have any question first before I wrap up? Camilla Barnard Victor. Camilla.
Oh, I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah.
Was probably a mistake. Thank you.
All right. So first, thanks everybody so much for sharing your experiences of those wonderful magical moments. Some call it magical moments. I usually do in my teaching, and commonly known as aha moment, the light bulb shine moment. So I think that is wonderful. So for those who would like to continue unfolding this conversation and contradictions, please do email me, Dr. Law, all in one word, @gmail.com. And I would be grateful to collect your thoughts in writing up my chapter or our chapter, because all of you will be acknowledged anonymously, ethically. For those who don't find it fair, as I always say, that is really unethical. All those IPA researcher, qualitative researcher, to say we are co-creating knowledge and create new theory or model of coaching through the semi-structured qualitative in the field, and giving voice for the marginal, especially through storytelling or IPA or whatever known model or research. But when they write up their thesis, as I noted in my doctorate students whom I supervise, those marginal voices remain marginalized. They were those unseen faces, unnamed names remain unseen and unnamed. The glory go to the researchers and author. And is that ethical? I think that is a coaching dilemma which I raised in my supervision. So we need to think about beyond the traditional ethical boundaries and reflect on ourselves. What is it really ethical, and to whom? I think that is the essence of my chapter of this unfolded conversation. So please email me to continue the dialogue. Of course, if you don't mention your name and don't want your name to be mentioned, you will remain anonymously acknowledged as the participants of this conversation.
Perhaps if you could put your email in the chat, Ho, for everyone to see, that would be helpful, I think, if people wanted to email you. So thank you for that. So what remains is thank you so much for an interesting and stimulating session, and go well, everybody. I'm just looking at what the next session is going to be. Where are we? So there's a session on feedback ethics starting at 7:30 Central European time, or 6:30 if you are on Greenwich Mean Time. Not sure what times it is elsewhere in the world. I'd have to do lots of sums to work that out, but it starts basically in 10 minutes time. So thank you so much. And I'm just going to do the usual thing. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye now.